It is September 10th, 2021. This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I'm Glenn Rubenstein tonight, joined by TK Trinidad to cover SmackDown on Fox and AEW Rampage. TK, welcome to the show. Great to meet you.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So Issa was actually in Madison Square Garden tonight. She's been live tweeting from the show. I think they probably had to mute her volume for her reactions during Roman and Brock and all those segments. Sounded like the crowd was going nuts, but they silenced a lot of it. I guess some of the foul language they couldn't put on the air.
Is that me or you? I think that's me.
Oh, you feeding back a little bit?
There you go. I was like,
okay.
Yeah. I'm like, technology.
We'll make it all work. We'll figure it all out. Yes.
It was great tonight. Just a lot going on, a lot to watch on a Friday night. I mean, if you didn't want to go out, then you had more than enough to do.
Yeah, so much wrestling. So much wrestling tonight. Kind of crazy. So let's talk about some of the news. AEW Dynamite scored its best audience since its premiere and topped Raw in the key demo this week. It was up 25.98% from last week's episode, which drew 1.047 million viewers for the All Out Go Home show. What do you think this signals?
We had the pay-per-view was crazy. So many surprises. And I don't like comparing the two because it's like almost comparing a grown adult to a child. I mean, AEW hasn't been around for that long. They definitely have a good blueprint. I think they definitely took a blueprint from what WWE does, which is like, here's some surprises, like something that you thought might happen, but you weren't sure it was gonna happen. Like, here you go. And they gave us surprise after surprise after surprise. And of course, a lot of people who are from WWE are now with AEW, and you wanted to watch to see what happens. Yeah. So, and it's usually, I think mostly for WWE, usually after their pay-per-views, it actually goes down a little bit. So this is a little bit different, but again, AEW hasn't been around for that long. So it's like, you definitely want to see what they're going to do with everything that's going on.
It's crazy. I mean, I don't cover Wednesday nights anymore. I turned on Dynamite this week because I wanted to see what was going to happen, how they were going to build from there. And I think the excitement is at an all-time high. I think a lot of people didn't watch All Out on Sunday, heard about it, and were curious to see what the hubbub was about. I think you make moves like this, you get people's attention. It'll be interesting to see what they can do to really, I wonder how long it's going to take them to the top SmackDown or Raw one week in the ratings. That's really going to be the key.
I mean, it's going to happen, but I mean, I think they're two great powerhouses, and, AEW is building up, and, it will happen. And then WWE might do something that's going to, bring us back into the fold. I said before on another show, like, WWE doesn't really care about our feelings. It's more about like new people on. So, for us who watch it on a regular basis, is like we complain and then we come back. It's, that's how it is.
Which is really odd. There's an old adage in business that it takes like 5 times the effort to get a new customer as opposed to keep your existing customers. Yeah. So it's interesting how WWE does this. But I think when AEW does beat WWE in the ratings, it's going to be more because WWE ratings go down rather than AEW doubling or tripling. I mean, look at like album sales. I think, every couple of years you see a story where like the number one album in the country this week sold 10,000 copies. That used to not even be enough to get you in the top 200 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's a change of guard, and whatever, like any empire, eventually it's going to have to, change hands. And, the key, the most important thing is staying around and keeping us entertained. And of course the numbers and the money also make sense, but with the move with Peacock and, what they're doing in Saudi Arabia, I think WWE is fine.
So Gable Stevenson signed with WWE this week. Do you know much about Gable, TK?
I saw him in the Olympics, saw him at SummerSlam. This is absolutely crazy because I'm a former track athlete. I was on a full ride before this whole new stuff came around. So it's I've seen former athletes be on both sides, whether it's like, are you still going to be hungry now that you have, a contract and now you have money coming in? Because as an athlete on a full ride, like I was getting $1,000 a month. That's what I was living off of. So now that you have a contract with WWE, and now they're bringing a facility to him for him to train, and he's still going to do a senior year. I mean, and who knows what else he's going to get. So he has a contract with WWE. I'm sure he's going to get some type of, Nike deal or shoe deal and clothing deal, all that stuff. So he's going to be rolling in some money more than the average athlete has been. So we're going to see, it's a multi-year deal. So we're going to see what's going to happen if he's going to be able to maintain it and maintain that hunger. Cause that's a huge thing too. You're hungry when you're broke. I don't know how hungry you are when you have money.
True. And for the WWE, this is their first ever NCAA NIL, that's name, image, likeness deal. So it's interesting that he's still gonna have his eligibility for another year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But he's also, UFC wanted him and NFL on him. I think this is definitely the better deal. The safer deal, because NFL, you have 2.5 years maybe if you're great, and then UFC, they wanted to put him in the minor leagues before they even brought him up. So I think this was the best bet for him, and who doesn't want to be a WWE superstar?
It's true. Lastly, Adam Cole apparently, because the word is out, the WWE wanted him to be Keith Lee's manager on the main roster.
But I mean,
whatever.
It's the thing with, I think WWE, and I think after the last couple of weeks, I think WWE is going to change their strategy. I think WWE feels like every wrestler wants to be signed to WWE. Therefore, they can give them whatever storyline, and that wrestler is now going to be happy because I'm with WWE. And that's not the case anymore. So it was just kind of like, oh, I want to be a wrestler, but you want me to be a manager. I'll pass. That's pretty much, and he's with his friends. It's not like he went to a whole new, team or anything. That he's with his friends, and the way it seems like how AEW's set up, it's like you can still pitch stories, and there's like a 60% chance that it'll actually happen versus WWE. There's like a 2% chance that your idea will actually, come true.
Now, that being said, all things being equal with pay and TV time, I mean, for someone like myself who's got the athletic physique perfect for podcasting, I would say, you know what? Let's keep that bump card fresh, and I'll just go out and talk a bit, and you just give me the 6-figure deal. I'm good with that. The exposure, the merchandise, all of it.
But I mean, yes, but if you're trained to be an athlete, it's just like, if you have if the car is trained, and obviously you can't train a car, but go with me with this. If it's a Ferrari, then that Ferrari wants to be treated like a Ferrari. It doesn't want to be treated like a dump truck. So it's one of those things where, like, if he's like, I've always wanted to be a wrestler, and they're like, no, we want to make you a manager, and you really don't know, because, like I said, I don't think WWE cares about our feelings. So he might be a manager, but then we might not see him for 3 months. No explanation. So
it's crazy. I mean, just the whole thing. So it makes a lot of sense why he would have chosen to not stay there and go be with his friends and All Elite Wrestling.
And who knows, that check might have been more.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, who knows what kind of deals they're. I had some insight maybe 3 years ago to what the original deals looked like for some of the guys. Who knows if they're bigger now? And that's the problem. We haven't had a good salary leak story lately.
Yeah, I think they're keeping that under wraps. And I think as long as I know for me, as long as my household is taken care of, and I can go on vacations once in a while, and not have to. I forgot there was I watched this documentary where the football. It was Marcellus Wiley from Fox Sports, and he was talking about they actually had to pay other doctors to help them out because the team doctor was terrible. So as long as I can keep my health in check and I have the money to do that, then I'm good. So and he'll probably be on the reality show. That's always a plus too.
And you got to really think about it that after a certain amount of dollars, you're just giving 50 cents of that right back to the government. So there. You make too much money, it's like you're actually somehow in the hole. Who knows how that works?
Unless you have a good tax person.
Absolutely. So tonight on SmackDown, we're at Madison Square Garden. We opened it, of course, with the 9/11 20th anniversary memorial video. And then we go to Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and the Usos coming out. I'm going to be interrupted by Brock Lesnar. And I've never seen Paul Heyman this emotional tonight. Torn. Brock trying to like, trying to get him some heat, saying like, why didn't you tell him I was going to come back? This ending with a lot of suplexes. What did you think of this segment to open the show?
I mean, Paul Heyman I think he should run for president. I'm saying that in jest, but I kind of want to see what will happen just because that's where we are right now. But it's so crazy. Like there's this meme that I refer to every single time where the meme said, I want my boyfriend to look at me like how Paul Heyman looks at Roman Reigns. Like it's one of those things that you know what it is in reality, but he suspends belief and you believe like, he doesn't know, he's legitimately torn. He doesn't know what to do. And I'm all for it. Like, I think if Paul Heyman wasn't in the mix, then this story, I wouldn't be, I think Paul Heyman was changing for Roman Reigns' career. And I'm all for it. I'm all in.
What's interesting to me, and this really came across tonight, is Paul always seemed buddy with Brock. He seems like Roman's manservant, like his Farnsworth Bentley.
Yes.
Just sort of, it's very, very different.
Yeah. I think it was the last SmackDown where he was like so Roman was sitting on the couch and Paul Heyman was like on the ledge, like looking at him like a puppy dog. Like all those little things are just great. Like only a true professional can think of all those little nuances. I'm sure nobody's telling him like, hey, this is what you should do. I think he's thinking about this all himself.
It's interesting where they're going with all this. And, I got to be honest, like seeing this segment and seeing what happened after, I was actually surprised Roman, even with all the seeds of doubt. I mean, it's interesting to me that they're kind of playing this like it could still go either way and not that it's just very clear whose side Heyman's on.
I mean, again, I think WWE gets off on, I compare this and people please don't come after me, but I compare this to, for you guys who believe in like, God and the universe, it's like, we have these plans and you're like, oh, we're going to do like, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be done. And the universe or God or, whoever you believe in is like, funny. This is what's actually going to happen. And I think that's what WWE does to us. It's like, and they don't do it every single time. Sometimes we know what's going to happen and it happens and, everything's right with the world. But then it's like, there's sometimes things happen and you're like, oh, that's not what I expected. And then you're upset about it. And that's exactly what WWE wants us to be. Because if you're not upset about it, then you're not going to tweet about it. And then, that draws, the heat. I hate to bring up Bianca from SummerSlam. That's still a sore point for me, but I'm still talking about it. And it's 3 weeks later, and I'm still upset. So they did their job.
I'll tell you, I think Vince McMahon is like it might just be blind narcissism and he's just doing his thing. He doesn't care. But I like to think he's just sitting somewhere in his mansion with monitors, monitoring social media. And for him, this is like his game of Sim City to just like, what can he do to anger the fans?
God, that's what he does. His hands are just like, I really don't care. And I know better than you guys. Because I've been around for 1,000 years. And, there it is.
Yeah. But no, Roman got a huge pop tonight. Brock got a huge pop. I mean, this was hot. This was a hot opening of the show. And I have to say that when they went from this into the 10-man tag, my first instinct when you see something like that announced is like, well, I guess this is how you step on your own pop. And just bring the show to a halt. But I have to say what Sami Zayn did with that intro tonight and coming out and putting over New York and then bringing out Trey Young was, I mean, Sammy just keeps taking his heel game to the next level.
I am all for it. I had to, there's just like wrestling, there's just so much to look up. So thankfully I had enough time. I looked up Trey Young and I see why there is an issue and I absolutely love it. So whoever made that call was perfect. Just a lot of emotions because you think about it, they started off with 9/11, of course, that 20-year anniversary, and you're reminiscing if you're around that time, and then you have Roman Reigns, and it's like they jumped different levels and different emotions. So it's a very emotional Friday SmackDown, which sometimes it's more of a I'm just gonna sit and eat popcorn and have a discussion with my friend while I'm watching
no
like that.
And I admit that as someone who, for over 5 years now, people has had to watch this stuff professionally to talk about it. Raw and SmackDown are great background shows. You could be on Twitter. Oh, hey, got something fun to say. Oh, Trae Young Classic. That's clever. I just sit there and put more effort into that sometimes than watching the show, which I think is obvious if you look at my Twitter feed. But no, I think it's good background. But tonight felt like kind of mini pay-per-view. Like there was a lot going on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Same here. I think I started around like 5 years ago or so. Yeah. And there are sometimes, behind the scenes stuff, letting you guys in. There's sometimes where, because it's so much like a soap opera, if you know the main characters, again, there's some shows where you know what's going to happen and they do exactly what you think is going to happen, and you can kind of coast off of that. But this one definitely, it had me looking up Trae Young, like, why are these people booing him so? Like there was a lot of hate, like serious hate. So I had to look it up. I watched a little video. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And kudos to WWE for putting that together.
I think this goes for people that live tweet TV or review wrestling. Watch our Twitter feeds. The less we're tweeting, the better an episode it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's like in our house, we always used to describe like the Americans or Better Call Saul. Like that's a phone down show. Like we're just not even during that, But tonight for SmackDown, I mean, this was solid between both shows. So Big E, Nakamura, Rick Boogs, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic Mysterio won the 10-man match. I would dwell on that, but there's so much more to talk about tonight. We had Becky Lynch in a large fake fur coat out there. She really turned up the heel aspect against the crowd against Bianca tonight. I too was very upset by the way they played Bianca out at SummerSlam. But what did you think of this tonight? I mean, they really leaned harder into heel Becky, I think, than they ever have before.
I absolutely loved it because you think about it, the colors that they wore. I don't know if it was planned, but Bianca was wearing white, very, angelic, heavenly, good, and Becky was wearing red, devil. I'm going to destroy you type thing. So I love the color contrast. I don't know if anybody planned it, but that's something I noticed for sure. I mean, we knew that was coming. I said this on another show. I don't think Bianca's going to. I think Becky's going to retain. Just because that's what. Yeah, I don't want that, but I think that's what's going to happen. And I'm also very upset, doing a show on women's wrestling all the time, that there are no women's matches.
I know.
On 9/11 and like the story with Zelina Vega and
that's right. And in the Garden and the Big Show. I mean, I agree, and it's crazy that AEW tonight had for all their challenges with their women's division that they had a match tonight.
They at least had one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Whose call was that? I don't. That seemed very,
I mean, look, tweet at me all the hate that you want. Some of these matches could have gone a little shorter tonight. It wouldn't have been the end of the world.
That part,
the
women's match,
look, Rollins versus Edge was a very, very good match. The main event with the Street Profits and the Usos was a very, very good match. But you could have shaved 3 minutes off of each of those. And we would still have loved them just as much.
That part. I agree.
I think that's the problem. What's that?
I said, don't tweet me, y'all, because I'm not. But yeah, it just, I don't know. We WWE, just talking about WWE, they have so much of a women's roster. And again, I have a show, Women's Wrestling Talk. We talk to female wrestlers all the time. WWE has so many women, such a stacked women's roster that they could have had at least one match.
Yeah.
And I think that should be something that's personally mandatory, but that's my personal opinion. But then, then you have, the Roman Reigns and the Samoan dynasty. That's what I call them. Where's Naomi at? And y'all don't tweet me. Naomi's part of the dynasty. She's part of the bloodline. That's my hot take. So where is she at? It's just, you can use women you can use wrestlers, period, that are in the locker room at catering in better ways than what happened. Great show, but you could have added a little bit more to it.
I mean, I'll tell you, and I think that look at what Naomi's been doing on Twitter. That's when I get frustrated, when I see talent trying to build momentum for what they have going on and nothing from TV. It's really, I mean, I don't know. I think NXT is the best show for women's wrestling currently going. And with SmackDown, I just don't understand how they keep dropping the ball. I understand it's a 2-hour show, but they could do something.
They can do something. They can hint at something. I mean, they could do backstage. Like, it's just, I don't know. The rumor is that Naomi is going to be joining the bloodline, and it's leading up to The Rock and Roman Reigns for WrestleMania. That's the rumor, but we're a long ways away from that. And again, I feel like WWE just loves playing with our emotions. So who knows? Because they've poo-pooed on Naomi so many times that I am.
Now I know. Well, and they did have a women's match on 205 Live last week. I believe that was the second time ever. Cora Jade against Mary Miller. I would love to see them take that time slot and turn that into a women's show with a mix of recaps of the other shows, but have original matches on it as well.
Something. You have it's like, does WWE like wasting money? Like, you're paying these people to show up. Catering isn't cheap. So you're paying these people to show up and eat and not and they have to reimburse them for all those flights that they take. So they're all flying into, so like, you're paying all this money to not utilize them. And if that's the case, then, I'm not advocating firing anybody, because we already know how WWE does sometimes, but it's just like, do something. So I don't know.
No, I know. After Empower, though, I think my fantasy has changed from an all WWE women's show to Mickie James getting the money to put on a cross-promotional weekly women's wrestling show.
I mean, yes, but we know WWE is not going to do that.
No, they don't need that, but you could take NWA, AEW, TNA, Ring of Honor, exactly, and do something there. And I think that would help advance it, because I'm telling you, I run into more casual wrestling fans that are interested in women's wrestling but don't watch the program regularly. Like, they feel like it's not for them.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up, but I mean, like I said, we do keep up at Women's Wrestling Talk, and there's a lot. Empower was amazing. Cool. Great. And you have ROH coming with their women's championship this weekend. Impact's always been doing a great job with women. And like I said, it's I don't know. There's more than enough women to have a show and or just have matches and a proper storyline.
Yeah. I don't get it. And tonight, I thought Edge versus Seth Rollins was a very, very good match. It's like I almost want to say that this felt too soon after SummerSlam. I understand that they want to keep this going, but they had such a great match at SummerSlam. I think Rollins getting his victory tonight, the way Edge was being taken out, to me, it seems storyline like he's going to be gone for a while, but people are already saying maybe, Extreme Rules or the pay-per-view after that. So I don't know. What'd you think of this match?
Yeah, I the same thing. I feel like definitely scary. I think if it was super serious, they would do something different. But I feel like when they do stuff like that, that means that either one, it's vacation time, or two, they have to go off and do something, or we're just not going to see them for a while. This was definitely a more of a pay-per-view worthy match. I don't know. It was a great match, and I love seeing it on SmackDown, but I feel like they could have saved it for another time. But I also feel like they stacked. There was a lot of things going on. So obviously the anniversary of 9/11, and then also coming off the heels of AEW, where WWE might not be competing, but they know what's going on. Yeah. So, you have to acknowledge that. And then I personally don't think that the Bianca Becky like that. I think Bianca would still have her belt if CM Punk didn't show up at AEW. They waited. So it's like, I feel like they're aware. They're not necessarily afraid, but they definitely want to, get ahead of the ball. So it's not like, oh, well, WWE is bankrupt, which definitely don't think is going to happen. But, you always have to be prepared.
Absolutely. So Rollins just destroyed Edge. And I do have to admit, I thought he could have done that even without the match. I just thought this thing could have been Rollins beating up Edge.
Yeah.
And that being it. But I did like his sort of like, who am I? What have I done? Reaction after that was a nice wrinkle to add to his character.
Yeah. I love when it's kind of like almost that acting component. And it's just kind of like it ties into the wrestling. That to me makes you an even better wrestler. Like, okay, you can wrestle and you have mic skills. And now, even without saying anything, your facial expressions tell the story. Like that's a whole nother level. So definitely, Seth Rollins went from somebody that you liked to somebody, personally, somebody I liked, and to somebody that, he was CrossFit Jesus at one point.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm like, I dislike you and your wife. So kudos to them for giving me those emotions.
No, absolutely. Most successful, second most successful transition from architect, someone working in carpentry, to being the Messiah. But no, I think he's so good as a heel. Personally, I think his laugh is like the worst / best / worst, somehow best again laugh on earth. I don't know, but I think this was a good wrinkle tonight. But yeah, I could almost use like a little bit of a break between these two before they dance again.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like sometimes with Seth, because he is so good, WWE will push him more because they know that it's kind of almost the same thing as like Charlotte Flair. It's like no matter what, you put them on TV, they're going to show up and, they're going to evoke some type of emotion. And I agree with you. It's just kind of like we could have put in a women's match and then, prolong this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just,
But okay. And here's what scares me about this tonight. And this is, I just want to make this clear for why I've been harping on this on social media, and especially want to give this adequate time tonight. WWE saw this tonight as probably their maybe their most important live broadcast of the year on TV, with the 20th anniversary of 9/11, them talking about the SmackDown after 9/11 being in Madison Square Garden back to New York for the first time.
Right.
They saw this as an important show, and they saw a women's match as not important enough to book on what they perhaps saw as the most important show of the year.
And then also on Twitter, Zelina Vega posted that she was, I'm assuming that's what it was. She was ready. And there might have been a match that was supposed to be scheduled, and it didn't happen. And it's kind of almost like it's kind of almost like a slap in the face. And obviously we don't know what, something might have taken place that had to get that shift, but it was just kind of like, somebody who was affected by it and is now back with this company, because we all know she was gone for a minute. Now back with this company and doing what she wants, not managing wrestling, and an opportunity like this is just taken away from her. And again, we don't know, we can all get upset and have the Twitter fingers, but we don't know what happened. If it was an injury or something happened that literally changed the course of that match. But I feel like they could have done something.
Well, as reported, I got the email because I'm a member. Let's see what came out officially tonight. Fightful Select reported that there was a women's match cut from this week's SmackDown that was supposed to be Liv Morgan and a tag team partner set to take on Carmella and Zelina on the show. So there you go. And I read online someone else speculating it was Toni Storm, which would make sense given.
So was she injured, or because we saw her?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we saw her last week,
and why not just have a singles match at least? So
it's very odd. It's very odd. So the main event tonight was the Street Profits versus the Usos, and God, I hate when they do a DQ finish. I'm glad they did this tonight because they need to really. This is one that this could main event a pay-per-view if they build this story right.
Right, I think they will. Both teams are they're very dynamic. I think. It's kind of one of those things that I like both teams though. It's hard for me when I don't know who to choose. But I'm for this. I am, however, for the Usos retaining. Like the Street Profits. I feel like they're gonna. They have who knows, 10 years, if not more, on their career. But at this moment, I want the Usos to retain. And then I would love for, again, just throwing in, the bloodline, Naomi to get a belt. But, that's more wishful thinking, but that would be amazing. I'm just putting it out.
I think it makes sense at that point, because if the argument is that the rest of the bloodline has the championships, I mean, why not go all the way with it?
That part. Can we just put that in the universe, please? Can we just make it happen? Just even if it's even for a day.
Sure.
And I mean, this would be heartbreaking. But even if you give it to her for a day and then she loses it the next day, at least there's that picture of the acknowledgement of the bloodline is, around and kicking, like everybody in the bloodline.
I can see if Becky retains and then for the next pay-per-view, but they really need to give Naomi a build up to that. And I think they could protect Becky by having the bloodline involved.
Right. And then having Paul Heyman be like the manager for the bloodline. Because I mean, again, I love Naomi, but I feel like she would benefit having a manager. And if Paul Heyman is her manager, like the story's already written. We already know what Paul can do. So he can create the story. It'd be all there. Like that would, I'm all for that. But again, I think it's wishful thinking. And I feel like, again,
it's unfortunate.
Care about our feelings.
So Roman Reigns rushed the ring, attacked Montez Ford, that caused the DQ. But then we went off the air with the Demon Finn Balor making an appearance to face off with Roman Reigns. Which is,
so because we already know that there's only 8 matches. So are you looking forward to this? Because I'm not. I'm like, okay, this is. Because they announced that that's what's going to happen for Extreme Rules. It's going to be Roman Reigns and Finn Balor. Like, are you for that, or are you just kind of like, okay.
I could see Brock interfering, allowing Finn to get a victory, Roman beating Brock in Saudi Arabia, then going to Raw.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, I have no interest in this match because I think Roman's going to win, retain, and Finn is just done at that point.
Yeah. I think, we know that Brock is eventually going to have the belt. It's just depending on when. And also too, with that rumor of The Rock actually coming, I believe that Roman Reigns needs to have the belt for that storyline to progress. So I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff in the air. And I think it might be really dependent on if that rumor is true, if The Rock is, that simmering in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But so that was SmackDown tonight. Then we go over to AEW Rampage. And man, if you were already exhausted by all the wrestling that you watched, I don't know if you could take Pac versus Andrade tonight. I mean, what a match. I mean, how did you feel? Like, okay, I just watched 2 hours with a hell of a lot of wrestling, and now let's go 20 minutes with a Batman versus Superman fight,
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, of course, 2 different brands, but but 2 people who have to cover it. And then I'm also going off of, I think yesterday I did 4 or 5 different wrestling interviews and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So it's just kind of like, okay, this is great, and I would really love to appreciate it on a fresh mind. It is a great match, and I think it's going to happen again eventually. But I feel like they put that match again because AEW is aware of WWE. Mm-hmm. So, and they were tweeting about what's happening on AEW while SmackDown was going on, of course. So, I think, this match had to happen. If they didn't have a strong start, then people would be like, okay, well, I can catch this another day.
Well, I'm actually thinking the opposite because this was taped Wednesday. I'm thinking WWE knew this was happening and they set up all those long matches tonight thinking we'll exhaust the audience. And that way people won't be able to, like, I know we're not there yet, but oh my God, I would love if we were there. I would love if Vince was trying to troll AEW for taping Fridays. Please let us get to that point where he's got like spies in the audience at tapings to give him reports so he can counter program.
I mean, anything is possible.
Sure.
And now that you say that, that also made, like, I mean, they have to acknowledge each other, and it's all about ratings. It's all about, like, at the end of the day, yes, they have the core group of fans who watch no matter what. And then you have the core group of fans who are team AEW, team WWE. But then you have the people who don't necessarily watch all the time and are being brought in. And those are the people that they really want because that's where the money is. And the commercials, like a lot of people are complaining about the commercials from SmackDown. That the 20th anniversary, like they were telling a story, and part of the story is those commercials need to be placed in certain places. So yeah, I feel like definitely Vince has his hand in a lot of things as per usual.
So I liked Rampage tonight. I do have to say though, I mean, yeah, like I think I'm very glad they're pushing Ruby Soho so much. It's very exciting with Adam Cole and Daniel Bryan joining. It was interesting though. I feel like if you watched Wednesday, follow me on this. If you watched Wednesday, tonight had some great matches, but it didn't offer like advancement necessarily of like their hottest signings in terms of they didn't advance CM Punk, didn't advance Ruby, it didn't advance Bryan or Adam Cole.
Right. Know? Yeah, I feel like they're still trying to figure out what they want to do with Rampage. Like it's great that they have that second show, and of course they have the YouTube shows as well. But I feel like they're still trying to figure out what's the like. I mean, you have the name.
Yeah.
But you're now trying to figure out the culture of that Friday night, like Rampage, what that's about. Because, you know, with Raw and SmackDown, you know, even though they're part of the same brand, they're very distinct shows. They're separate onto themselves. So I think AEW is still trying to figure out the culture for Rampage on Fridays.
Yeah, and this was a great match with Pac and Andrade. I thought this was really well done. Some of the spots in this were insane. Just a very, very enjoyable match. I thought Andrade getting the win. I mean, Pac still looks strong given how Andrade got the win with Chavo.
And then turning on him.
Yeah, like, and then beating him up after.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you think? Do you think that's presenting a Splinter storyline too?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I feel like in AEW there's a lot going on with these stories, and then I think this is an interesting criticism because a lot of people lobbied this critique, like when Marvel was originally trying to interconnect TV and movies and all these other things. You feel like you have to pay attention a lot to really get the entire story. And I feel like with AEW, social media, 2 YouTube shows, Wednesday, Friday, this is the danger of not having a roster split, is that you've got these cross events that interweave, and maybe only the hardcore fans are getting the entire story.
Right. No, it's a lot going on. It's kind of one of those things where you have WWE and you're like, there's not enough story. Like you only have 2 or 3 main stories. There's not enough stories. And then you have AEW's like, oh, we're going to give you all these stories. And you're like, wait, there's too many stories. And so I definitely agree with you. That's why sometimes I get like wrestling exhausted and I have to take like a break.
Oh, totally.
It's a lot, but it is a lot of storylines. But when you do follow it, then it makes you question like, oh, well, what's going to happen next? Which is, to me, the best part of wrestling, when it's like, okay, let's like when you have a match and then it's like, oh, okay, you don't really care. Then to me, that was pointless. But when you're like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next, I think that's the key.
I think given Tony Khan's background as like a diehard like internet wrestling nerd, I think they have built a company for the super fans. I mean, Wednesday when Taz was calling out CM Punk for something he said on Twitter, and I was just like, what? Like, I'm lost here. Like, what is going on? You know, I mean, they're really, he's built a company for people that want to just obsess over every nook and cranny of storyline.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. I think the initial was like staying true to the indie premise, because you have people, I mean, you have, for instance, WWE will sign somebody who's been in the indies for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden they just change their name. It's like, wait a minute, like Taya Valkyrie, for instance. It's like, wait a minute, there's the whole career prior to that. Why can't we acknowledge like what's so wrong? Like, I understand, like, you know, owning the names and all, which is a whole another thing we can't get into, but like, you know, or even, well, Piper Niven or Doudrop. I mean, she was from NXT UK, which is a whole another story in itself. I go on tangents a lot, but it's one of those things like, why don't you just acknowledge them, acknowledge those careers? And I think AEW, they do make a point of like, this person had a whole indie career, or this person's done this, or they reference WWE without saying WWE, which, you know, some of those takes are really, really cute.
No, I think this and the people in the chat and the comments will back this up. TK, these are the most wrestling related tangents I think we've ever gone off on a Wrestling Inc. podcast. You know, if Alfred and Nisa are here, we'll be talking about the results of my Twitter poll about the music of Breakin' versus Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. So it's good. I'm glad we're keeping a little tighter tonight. We're focusing.
Trying.
Yes. So we had this promo with Darby Allin and Sting responding to Tully Blanchard. We had Sean Spears sneak into the ring. I mean, I like that they're giving these guys something after the CM Punk match. I mean, how are you feeling about this feud?
Sometimes I think when you have such a build up to certain things, this would be like the perfect time to take a break. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for instance, and we already know that Darby Allin can go and he likes doing crazy stuff. But this would be like the perfect time to take like a couple weeks off and then let CM Punk have his shine, call out the next person, and then kind of like I would like to see that, because then it also gives openings for other people in the locker room to have a little bit of time to shine and build those storylines. So you know, I'm all for the people who want to work all the time, but sometimes it's nice to, I'm not saying to go and take an extended vacation, but like, you know, do a little video promo and then, you know, be off on an island somewhere for a hot second, or, you know, we're in a pandemic. So,
well, an island might be the only safe place. It's crazy to be thinking back to when this journey began, that everyone pegged Darby as a star from the get-go, and just now, like, yeah, he's the big name. Like, people are tuning in to see what he's going to do next. I think this is going to elevate Sean Spears, which is a great twist of fate, given where both their stocks were at when they came into AEW.
Yeah, I remember when I saw Darby Allin. It was a random. It wasn't. I don't want to say random. It was like a show on Hulu. I think it might have been called The Wrestlers or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
He's in the backyard doing this crazy stuff, and I was just kind of like, okay. When AEW announced him, I was like, I can see this, and I feel like he's great for the company. I just don't want us to get burnt out, of him. Yeah.
I think with Darby, that's the other. I mean, just the legitimate, literal danger is the more we see of him, the more he has to try and up his antics, and I worry for that kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely something that he wants, not something that back saying, "Hey, put your head through a table. Now put your head through fives." That's something definitely that it seems like, just based off what I saw from that TV show, that's, you know, he's an adrenaline junkie. So it's one of those things. So but I mean, he's doing it safely. He knows how to do it. Yeah. But again, I feel like sometimes you need to just tell people, it's like, okay, we've had a big moment. Let's, you know, take a seat and then let other people, and then come back with a different storyline.
Yeah. We got exclusive interviews tonight with Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole. I mean, there wasn't a lot. I mean, we knew Bryan was chasing Kenny Omega, and with Adam Cole, he's there with his friends. I didn't think there was a lot of substance with this. Which one of the two are you more excited about with their AEW journey?
I think what we know what we're gonna get with Adam Cole. Because there's you know, a group already established prior to this. With Bryan Danielson, we don't know. I mean, we know he's already said what he wants, but we don't know how it's going to you know, come out. Because think about it, he is a group of one. Of course, there's gonna probably be people that's gonna go into his corner. But when you have an established roster already set, and people know the history from different, you know, different promotions, like, it kind of ups the ante a little bit. So you know, I'm curious to see how he's, and then I don't think there's quite an age difference, but there still is kind of an age difference. You know, Bryan Danielson, we obviously know him from WWE. We saw him on reality shows. Like, he's, you know, a little bit on the older side, like, you know, that uncle guy. So I'm really interested to see what they're gonna do with this, how it's gonna play out.
Yeah. So we went from those interviews to a 6-woman tag team match: Ruby Soho, Rio, and Chris Statlander versus AEW champion Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Rebel. What'd you think of this match? I
mean, I absolutely love Britt Baker, DMD.
Yeah.
She is one of those people, if you are fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to work in an office, there is a Britt Baker in every office. Like there is that woman in every, and or man, I guess, in every office. And I love to hate her. Like, she is the nicest individual in real life, but when a wrestler can suspense belief and you're like, but I know this person in real life to be nice, but I really hate them right now. I absolutely love it. And I dislike her. I want her to lose the belt. However, I want her to retain the belt because she has these, I think it was like last, or it might have been this Wednesday, where she was talking to Ruby Soho and she's referring to her being in catering for 2 years. Like, she has these nice little digs that's like, oh, that's really, like, again, you meet those, those people in the 9 to 5 office where they're just not happy with their life and they just want to throw shade all the time. That is great.
I want to be one of the people that can see behavior like that and just go up to someone and say, I just want to let you know I hate you, but I also love you. Keep doing you. Yeah. I feel we need to give people their roses like that in day-to-day life.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, there was a transition. I think it was when like Thunder Rosa came into play and her and Thunder Rosa were going at it. It's like she kept upping the ante, and now where she is right now, like, she's absolutely amazing. Love to hate her.
So with Ruby Soho, she is all over the graphics. Like, she's now featured matches Wednesday, Friday. Like, they are all in on her. I'm wondering, I don't think she beats Britt, but I do think, I hope that they spin her into a storyline so we can actually finally get multiple concurrent women's division storylines. It's not just all about the championship anymore.
That part. I feel like, again, Britt is just a great champion. She's great on the mic. She's great on storytelling. I don't think, if Ruby gets it, I think they might do it just because of the former tie to WWE. Like, you have a lot of people who are rooting for WWE's downfall. Like, you see it on Twitter all the time. Oh, AEW was amazing. WWE sucks. And like, 2 shows can exist at the same time. Like, it's okay, people, like, relax. But I feel like the AEW might use that to bring more people on, because they didn't really do Ruby Soho justice at WWE. So
not at all.
They're gonna say, well, here you go. You're talented. We're gonna not necessarily give this to you, but you deserve this. So I think they might do that. And then also seeing maybe Britt trying to get the belt back might be interesting too, because she's just very dynamic. But I do want to see more storylines. Like, we have a lot of women on roster. Even Jade, and they just signed Kiera Hogan, which she had a couple matches in Dark, and then she was on AEW, her debut, and she was on there for like 10 seconds, which was very disrespectful. But I feel like they can have different storylines, and they have enough shows, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think there's a lot of different directions they could go with this, but clearly they believe in her. I mean, they're giving her such spotlight opportunities now, and I really love to see that. I think great for her. And just there's such an outpouring of support for her, both from other wrestlers, from the wrestling community. Like, I think that, this is going to be really, really cool to see how the storyline plays out. So, of course, she got the pin and won this match.
Right. To be honest, like, it takes a lot, and prefacing it, I've never been a wrestler. I am a former athlete, football, CrossFit, track, blah, blah, blah. But it takes a lot to get to that level, to get to any promotion. There are a lot of people who want to be wrestlers, and they might be good wrestlers, but they're not great wrestlers, or they might be okay wrestlers, but they're not really great on the mic. It takes a lot to get to the level and to be signed to WWE, or to be signed to Impact, to be signed to wherever. So, now the thing is with these promotions is for the promotions to see the true worth and elevate them. So if you look at Deonna Purrazzo, she was at WWE, didn't do so well, but now she's at Impact and she's killing it. Yeah. So I feel like with the different promotions, they can see those things that, will make that individual a star.
And then the main event tonight, Brian Pillman Jr. versus Max Caster with Anthony Bowens. So Max Caster, I, you know, I think it's smart, even though I'm one of the people that had a lot of issues with what he said a couple weeks ago. I think it's smart how they've played off of that and saying he's on thin ice, or I guess he had a segment where he ripped up a script there. I don't know. Like, I want to get behind his gimmick so bad, but I just don't think he's really bringing it. Like, I want to see more. I know he's got skills. I've listened to his other music and whatnot, but it's like, I just don't feel like this is the best spotlight for him. I mean, if you're a rapper and they're giving you time on national TV to go out there, I don't know. Like, I want fire from him every time he's on the mic.
Maybe he needs to bring in some of Drake's writers. Maybe. I mean, he's definitely skilled. I do like the fact that they showcase him. I think there's just something, I agree with you. There's just something missing. I don't know if it's like, so if they take, for instance, I hate to go back to WWE, but like take, for instance, the Usos. Maybe about 5 years ago, they switched just their outfits and then their music. And then it's like, you're in the Uso penitentiary. Like you are for that. It's like, maybe he has to go dark. I don't know. There's just something, or maybe the attire. There's just something that it's just like literally one little thing. And then I can get on board. At this moment, I'm not, I'm with you. I'm not fully on board. There's just something missing for me to like really kind of invest in this character.
Yeah, because his gimmick, it's kind of like, I don't know, like that, oh my God, look, can you believe what I just said? And it was like, that wasn't particularly like clever or interesting or like I want the content to match his bravado.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of almost like Nick Cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, Nick had some albums. He had a few here and there. And, maybe he has to have like 7 kids or something. Maybe that was the game.
Something, anything. But this matchup is kind of what you thought, right? Brian Pillman Jr. getting a win in his hometown. Feel good moment.
Yeah, we knew. I mean, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be any different.
Yeah. And then Moxley came out at the very end. So there you go. Send him home happy.
Yeah. You need something a little like tie-in. I feel like same thing. We watched so much wrestling that this was like, okay, because actually I don't know what happened. Terrible. Spectrum is absolutely terrible in LA. But I don't know what happened, but the spinning wheel of death decided to happen right when that happened. And so I even got like the tail end of it, but I didn't feel like I had to like, oh my God, I have to watch every moment of it. This match was like, it was great. I knew it was going to happen. And yeah, it was a good, here you go, Friday. Here's your weekend.
I have to say, if it's becoming increasingly rare when I feel genuinely surprised by what happens during a match. The outcome sometimes, sure, but a lot of the times there is sort of a playbook to how these go. Even when you have, and so-and-so is going to interfere, and then someone's going to come out, and then the ref's distracted, he's going to do this. Like, I feel, and this isn't indicative of AEW. I mean, this is indicative of like all professional wrestling.
Right.
Because it's kind of like with food. If you think back like 30 years ago, like, there was really good food, and then there was like just the really pedestrian stuff. But then everyone figured out how to make really good food, and we're blessed that we can get really great food anywhere and everywhere now, right?
I was wondering where you're going with this. I'm like, I'm curious. Like, continue talking.
No, because I'm thinking about when I was growing up, and I was thinking about how like, there were nice restaurants, so there was like new things, like food. Some stuff was new, or like when you could get avocados year round, like that was like a delight. But I think it's that thing where like our palates, I'm tying it in, our palates as wrestling fans have evolved, and wrestlers know how to play to those so much that there's almost like a formula. There's a couple different formulas for having a great match.
Right. No, it's I definitely agree, but it's just sticking to that food analogy.
Yeah.
Sometimes we eat too much of the same thing and then we get tired of it. Like,
it's true.
I mean, you could bring it into like music, for instance. A lot of people either hate Drake's new album or love Drake's new album. But if you look at all his albums, there's a formula. That's why he has all these number ones. That's why he was able to drop it at 2:00 in the morning. It's the same thing with the greatest wrestlers. Like they have a formula. And the great ones who do have a formula, we still don't see it coming. They're able to like do a couple things here and there. And then the ones who are building or who are not that great, we see it coming. It's projected. You even see them talking sometimes, which is kind of, off. But yeah, I agree with you. It's now I'm fully on board with this full analogy. But I think now as North Americans, because I'm from Canada, so I'll include everybody. as North Americans, we now indulge too much on the avocados and the burgers and everything else because it's so much. It's so the Tim Horton bits because it's so accessible. And then we get tired of it, and then we complain how the food is not like it used to be. So sometimes we need to take a break, like put the avocados down, put the Tim Hortons down, and then come back, maybe a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, and so you can fully appreciate the sugar and the avocado with the on the toast, all that stuff. If you have it all the time, of course you can get sick of it.
Hey, Canada had pizza at McDonald's in the 90s. So I think, clearly on the cutting edge of culinary
innovation. And it was absolutely terrible, by the way. It was
really awful. I always wanted to try the McLobster, which was only on the eastern coast of Canada.
Lobster.
It was like a McDonald's lobster wrap, but it was only like Nova Scotia, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Well, Scotians are kind of crazy. So
yes. Separate conversation. All I know of Eastern Canada is like watching episodes of Republic of Doyle. Like I'm very limited in my Eastern Canadian knowledge.
I mean, I don't know if you consider Toronto Eastern. Yeah, I mean, it is East Coast, but we're not. There's a very distinct difference between Nova Scotians and Torontonians. So
it's true. Yeah.
Another conversation.
Another conversation. We'll have to go deep on everything I know from Kids in the Hall, Bare Naked Ladies, and Degrassi at some point. And like the 1 year we had much music in the US. Oh, that was my favorite. It was the summer that Northern Touch was everywhere. Like that was like one of the best summers of my life, sitting at home in Northern California watching Much Music.
Wow, wait. So who's the we'll have this. People are gonna get bored with this conversation. We'll have this conversation on it off air. Yeah, Much Music was a interesting, still around, but
yes. And for the record, Thrust had the best verse in Northern Touch. I still contend the last verse in the song. But Rascals did that song with Bret Hart. We were supposed to interview Bret Hart on this show once he backed out at the last minute, and that's all I was going to ask him about was the song he did with Rascals back in like the late 90s. Oh, that was my entire plan.
I didn't even know I have to look up that song now. I didn't even know it's. I can't believe. I'm not going to disrespect. I am from Canada, so I'm not going to say anything negative. I'm glad you appreciated all our Canadian entertainment had to offer because sometimes it was lacking.
Well, hey, I bought a Serial Joe record once, so yes, I fully understand the depths of Canadian music. Cool. Well, on that note, TK, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me everywhere at TK Trinidad. Also, if you are into women's wrestling and you want to see interviews, we have Jordan Grace coming up next week on Fight TV. Yeah, that interview, we actually talk a lot about Canadian rap too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, you definitely want to check out that interview. So it's Women's Wrestling Talk. You can follow us on everything at WW Talk Pod, website, social media, all that good stuff. And you can follow me on everything TK Trinidad. Just Google me. You'll find me.
Awesome. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. Chris Jones, thank you for the super chat. He just tossed some money at us. Nothing to say. Just, hey, here's $1. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll catch you back here next time on the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Take care.
Ciao.